Hello and welcome to the Australian Ultrarunners webinar on women in ultrarunning. There has been a great rise in the number of women participating in ultrarunning, and Aura would love to see this growth continue strongly into the future. To ensure this happens, we thought a webinar addressing the particular concerns of women, the usuals, life balance, juggling commitments, managing guilt, trail safety and those bathroom woes would be helpful. There will be a follow-up Q&A session for Aura members within the week, so get your memberships sorted. Enjoy this replay of the webinar and have your pen and paper ready to take questions for the Q&A session. Fantastic. All right, well, I think
we're ready to kick off. We've got over 200 participants already joined us, Izzy, so I reckon we're ready to go. Fantastic. They'll keep coming in.
Yep. Well, I'm sure people will keep coming in, but for now, hello and welcome to the Aura Women in Ultrarunning webinar. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Now, we have done webinars before, but we thought we'd do a specific one for women in ultrarunning because we all remember, men and women, how daunting it is when we start ultras, but for women there are a few extra challenges, and we thought we'd look at those challenges through the female lens for this webinar. And we've got lots of different topics, and we hope they help you whether you're a new ultra runner or just a seasoned ultra runner wanting to know how other people cope with these challenges. So to start us off tonight, I will present Ewan Horsburgh. Ewan is a father of two. He's been running since the 80s. He's represented Australia 6 times at the 24-hour championships, 3 times Coast to Cosy winner, 200-mile fan, and now he's giving back to the sport as the Aura president. So, Ewan, welcome.
Thanks, Izzy. Yeah, running since the 80s makes me sound really old, but I loved it as a kid. And yeah, my dad was also, he ran 6-foot track early on. So yeah, I was kind of exposed to all this then. So yeah, thanks everyone for coming to the second webinar in the series. Welcome to our Aura members and people hearing about Aura for the first time. Some of you might even be looking at stepping up to the ultra distance. I know there's quite a path there from these shorter trail runs. So yeah, early in the year when we held our Aura AGM, women and ultra running was the hot topic. We spent a lot of the AGM talking about it, and it's great to see everyone here volunteering, to talk about this topic and see so many people coming along. So who are Aura? We're Australian Ultra Runner Association, or Aura for short. You can check out our Facebook page. We've got a good about page there about the things that we do. We're not for profit and volunteer run, like everyone here volunteering. So if you want to contribute, reach out to your state reps. They're on the website. So ultra running as a sport is booming. You may have heard of it, and more women than ever participating and racing. So there's this website called DUV Ultramarathon Stats, this German site, and so there we can actually see what has been happening to the sport in Australia, and looking at that, we can see starting in the 80s there was about 10% female ratio. That moved to 15% in the 90s, 20% in the noughties, and about 35% in recent years. So you can see that growth is quite big. That's every race that's over a marathon classed as an ultra. If you look at the shorter distances, about 50K, the stats are even bigger. Looking at UTA, which is our biggest ultra, 100K went from 187 in 2015 to 236. Numbers in the 50K has doubled from the first to the last. And in the 22K, it's gone from 381 to 1,360 in 5 races. So you can see that progression up. I'll try and pop this link into the chat so people can, read these stats. So I'd just like to hand it back to our awesome host, Izzy. So Izzy, you may know her, but if you don't, she's a mum of 2 adult kids, run coach at Peak Endurance Coaching. He's a level 2 recreational running coach, as well as a UESCA certified coach, and has run many races, represented Australia 3 times at World Long Distance Mountain Running Champs. She's won 6-foot track, one of our biggest ultras, and participated in the notorious Barkley Marathons. So over to you, Izzy. You're on mute.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ewan. Such good stats to hear about the women participation increasing. It's just really positive, and we want to keep that going and build the momentum. So now what I will be doing is introducing our different panelists. So first of all, we have Nicole. And Nicole is a mother of 3. She's an educator, running coach, and founder of Running Mums Australia, which is a nationwide running network for women and mums. She has run numerous marathons, half marathons, and 10 ultra marathon events, including 200Ks. She loves the challenge that ultra running gives her and places and people that she gets to meet along the way. So welcome, Nicole. Then we have Donna. Donna is a wife and a mum, a scientist, a PhD in the field of pain. So ultra running, which is really very painful at times. She's transitioned from triathlon, which would also be painful, I'm sure, and found ultra running after having her son. Her running highlights: she's represented Australia at the World and Asia Oceania 24-hour champs. She's run in international races in Cambodia, Hong Kong, and Japan. And she has been able to share her running journey with family and friends. She's passionate about exploring her own limits and empowering other women to do the same. Next, we have Nikki. Nikki is the mum of a teenage son. She's the practice manager of an allied health high performance training centre. She's the first Australian to win the Badwater Ultra Marathon. She's been an Australian representative numerous times, over 24 hours and 100 kilometres, and she's the current Australian 48-hour record holder. She knows the challenge of being a wife, mum, full-time worker, and ultra marathon runner. Amy is a mother of 3. She's been long distance running for almost 20 years. She's a running coach, personal trainer, trail running guide, event management for Ultrain events in Tasmania, pardon me. Then we have Jane. That's sort of like a combination of words there to make it tricky. Jane is the first woman to have run 664 kilometres across the Simpson Desert. She has run 2,300 kilometres solo and unsupported from Canterbury in the UK to Rome in Italy. That is a long way, and unsupported as well. She's run over 450 marathons and ultra marathons, including 9 coast to Cosy finishes. She completed her first marathon at the age of 40, and last year, age 60, finished her 9th coast to Cosy. What an achievement. Alicia is a mother of 2, juggling full-time work, parenting, and exercise. She found ultra running after a momentously hard time in her life and hasn't looked back. Alicia has completed in a number of events, and the support of her family lifts her through the hard patches. And I think a lot of us with families know that when we're going through a hard patch, if we think of our families, that always helps. Annabelle is a mother of a 16-year-old girl, which I'm sure has its own challenges. She is a writer and has almost 19,000 kilometres of ultra events, including a 10-day and 9 6-day races, as if a mile isn't enough. And she's the current Australian female 1,000-kilometre record holder. And with us, we also have John and Martin, and they've both done many ultras and represented Australia and are highly accomplished athletes. And they are here to be representative of all the men who support women in ultra running, as there are many men who do. And we really appreciate that too, and we want to thank them. Lastly, but not least, we have Simone. Now, Simone is a mother of 2. She's the owner of Energy Fitness. She's a running coach and outdoor group training. And she's an ultra runner, and she's a treasurer of Aura. Simone is looking after our chat tonight. So whenever you post a question in the chat, Simone will answer it for you. If she thinks that maybe it needs a little bit more discussion, she will save your question, and at the end of the webinar, we will discuss it in question time and get some of our panelists to answer. So make sure that you put your questions in the chat. And while it's great to have the chat there, just remember to maybe just close it off while you're focusing on the topics at hand. It makes it a little bit easier to focus. I know women are very good at multitasking, but sometimes it is easier just to focus on one thing at a time. All right, to start us off, we are going to talk about the fact that ultra running is one of the very few sports where women can actually compete on the same level, in the same race, on the same course as men. Not many sports are like this. Amy, can you talk to us some more about that, please?
Yeah, thanks, Susie. I think ultra running is a really interesting sport for women. I'm lucky enough to be involved in running over all distances, really, you know, to be involved in park run and 5K fun runs, not just competing, but as an organizer as well. And one thing that we notice when you look at results, and we might be sieving through a 5K fun run result, and you look at page 1 and you're scrolling down, oh, there's a female, and you keep scrolling down, there's another one. And you're kind of sieving through that first page, which is dominated by men initially. And as you get to, you know, the bottom end of the page, there'll be less men and there's more women. And then as the distances increase, you sort of notice that, you know, you have more women on that first page, and it gets spread more evenly. But what's really fascinating is once you get to ultra running, and particularly the longer distance ultra running, is when you look at that page, it's really common for that to be very even on that first page, you know, for women to be in the top 10 or women to be outright podiums in ultra running events. And that's really exciting for us in sport. And it's something I think that's kind of helped for women to gain respect in sport, not just in running, but in sport in general. It has highlighted that we too have that physical ability, that we are on the same level as men in our own way, physically, which is really exciting for us. And I think that's something that has not just gained respect for women from men, but also from other women, and I think as a whole. And that kind of changes the dynamic of lining up in a race. Women can line up in an ultra race and you just feel like another runner. You're not there, a male or a female. You're just another athlete, and it's really exciting. I think it's really exciting, and it's one of the reasons that I really enjoy ultra running, because I just feel on an even par with every athlete that's on that field. And I think that's something that all women should feel, regardless of where you are on that page of finishes. You know, it's very even, and I think it's really acceptable in ultra running. And it's a great sport for that reason. Yeah.
That's great. Thanks so much. And I think, Amy, that you were a little bit modest in your bio that you gave me. You actually have won UTA 100 and come second at Coast to Cozzy. So just proof there that women are up there. So well done. That is awesome work. And thank you. You're quite right. With ultra running, having women top of the fields, the longer the distance gets. Another reason that ultra running is attractive to women is the sense of community, and it's a social outlet for women. It sure beats just meeting for coffee and cake. So to talk about that, we have Nicole and Nikki.
Hi, thanks, Izzy. So when I started in the sport of running when I was younger, I did it as a solo sport. And so I would just take myself off for runs around the block. And then when I came back to running after I had my children, I did the same thing. So I would just take myself around the block for runs, but I actually found that I was quite isolated and quite lonely. And then I was, searching for a way to meet other runners. I felt like, I was going through a time in my life where I was a young mum and I needed connection, and I needed something to bring me together with other people that enjoyed running like I did. And so that's when I created Running Mums Australia. That was the catalyst for why I created it. And all of a sudden my world was opened up to the possibility of connection through running. And over time that's developed into a hugely social aspect for me and a lot of other women. And I've seen them, I've seen this, journey unfold for lots and lots of women whose stories I've been privileged to share in. And that's that, we want to be able to try new things, but when we're able to do it in a social aspect, able to do it where we feel connected and inspired and motivated by other people, it makes it so much easier to achieve what we want. So that's been my story. seeing women step up to ultras, and I know from my first experience running my first ultra marathon, I had absolutely no idea what to do, but I was opened up to this connection of community, which allowed me to have people that were so much more experienced than me that I could draw from and learn from their experiences, ask questions, meet for runs with them. And sometimes it was about pushing me and my limits, and sometimes it was about just learning and chatting and getting to know the person as an individual. So for me, that's been my experience, and I know the experience of lots of other women. So yeah, I think the social connection of running, particularly for women, is a big one. But when we step up to things like ultra running, we can learn so much from the people around us.
Thank you. Nikki, do you have something to say on the topic?
Yep. Yeah, so it was interesting because obviously Nicole and I have been chatting, and when we spoke, I said, when I first started ultra running, 10 to 12 years ago, there was none of the groups that are around today, like the Running Mums Australia, the Listfield Trail Runners in our local backyard, the Running Divas. None of those groups actually existed. So I often did find myself running most of my training runs with often, 8 to 10 guys. So obviously you don't have the same chit chat and banter. And then lucky for me, I found Izzy. So, it was a fantastic sort of friendship that started about 10 years ago. And, we would plan our weekend long runs, and, even for me, even having just one female friend I could rely on, and we'd plan our runs, we'd get a coffee, we'd be out there and we would talk nonstop. And it wasn't always just about running, it was about training, but then it was about family and, kids and work. And so it actually just gave me another support person. So I think it's fantastic it is now. We've got all these groups. As long as you can align yourself with one or two females, that you can rely on, that you've got there, that you can talk with, you can share your stories, your training. So I think we're really, really lucky these days that there are, we do have so many more women in the sport, but we just didn't have, sort of when I first started 10 years ago. So it was a very, very lonely sort of existence back then. So it's actually, it's amazing how far the sport's become.
Thanks, Nikki. And that is a good reflection that there weren't so many groups back then, and how spoilt we are for choice now. And when you go to these groups now, you're right, there's lots of women in the groups, and you can buddy up and make new friends and lots of things like that. So that's great. Thank you for that, ladies. Next, we're going to talk about body image and body image perceptions. This is something that has plagued women for a long time. Not feeling the perfect shape, am I the right body for running, and a lot of the running clothes are quite tight and those sorts of things, and how do we deal with those feelings related to body image? And tonight, to talk about that, we have Alicia and Nicole. Who's going first tonight?
Hi everyone, it's Alicia here. Yeah, so the whole body image factor for me was, I know personally, whenever I used to turn up to a race, I would compare myself with every other female there. And like what Nikki was saying before, like there never really used to be that many females, but now that there's so many of them, and that's a lot of comparing to do if I was still to compare myself to everybody there. I found that if I saw somebody who looked faster or more toned or leaner or anything than me, in my head mentally, I would say, oh, they're going to beat me. And that was it. And then over time, I kind of realized that actually I was either up there with these leaner, more toned females, or even beating them. And I'm thinking, well, really, that's just my perception. So, but it takes a long time to realize that there is no actual proper running body image at all. Like there really isn't. You can be a size 4 who is a string bean to, somebody who is larger and doesn't look like a runner, but they will go out and they'll beat me even. There's plenty of different things to body image, and I'm sure that Nicole will definitely be able to go into some depth about it with all of her background and everything. But definitely body image is just your own perception, and you in yourself need to have the confidence to go, well, I've put the right things into my body, I've trained hard, I can do this. And if you go in with the positive attitude, then you can, and try not to let those little demons on top of your shoulders talk. So Nicole, do you want to expand on that at all?
Sure. I could talk about this topic all day. And I just wanted to preface by saying, you know, if you just look at the screen of panelists here, you can see that we're all very different. And we're all different ages and different sizes, different backgrounds. And I want women to stop thinking about their body as being the only thing that matters. So my story is that I suffered from an eating disorder for about 15 years. So from my teens into almost my 30s. And, you know, it's something that was a real struggle to learn how to deal with. And my worth was always about how I looked. And, you know, when I started running as a teenager, it was about staying skinny. And that's why I ran. And as I got older and had my children, I realized that wasn't where my value came from, that my looks weren't what was most valuable. And it was about how strong I could be in myself as a person, what I could give back to the world. And as a runner, and through meeting other people and having the amazing experiences that I've been able to have over the past few years, developing as a runner, putting myself out there, you know, dreaming big and taking on challenges that I never thought were possible. I've learned so much about body image and what people perceive as important. And for me, I see so many women having a go now. When I started ultra running, there wasn't as many women, as Ewan said. You know, my first UTA, it was vastly different to my last experience at UTA, where I was surrounded by just so many women of all different shapes and sizes. And I just wanted to, I want people to know that that what's important is that you try, that you're having a go. You can surround yourself with amazing athletes that, you know, are what people would consider the pinnacle of what you should look like as an athlete. But that isn't the most important thing. You know, you can learn so much about yourself just by being who you are. I think having a strong body, a strong mind, you know, looking after yourself physically and mentally and emotionally, spiritually is more important than what, you know, society says we should look like. I'm so lucky to be surrounded by so many different women that are having a go at running, whether that be just getting out for their first 5K or an ultra marathon, that are vastly different in size, shape, and ability. So I just want to encourage you that it doesn't matter what body shape you are. It doesn't matter how big your breasts are. It doesn't matter how big your butt is. You know, just get out there and have a go. Try and surround yourself with women that are going to lift you up and value you for your input, having a go, and not about what you look like. And if somebody's, I guess if you're surrounding yourself with the wrong people that are giving you a different idea of what value is in terms of body image, then it's time to step away from those types of people and surround yourself with people that actually value you for, you know, the person that you are. So keep having a go. Obviously, you know, create a strong body and a strong mind, and that's what's most important.
Thank you for that. That's so true. And I think you'll find when you're at a race and you're on the start line, you'll see that there are people of all shapes and sizes. There is no typical runner's body. The runner's body is the body you're in. And it doesn't matter what shape it is, as long as you're strong enough to get to the finish, then you're a runner. And even if you don't finish, well, sometimes that's just the way it goes. I'm sure all of the panelists here have had episodes of DNF. So as long as you're out there giving it a crack, you're a runner, and it doesn't matter about your shape or size. And I think everyone would agree with that. And along those lines, sometimes women with the societal pressures that we get, and, you know, right or wrong, we sometimes encounter negative reactions. How do women navigate these? Now, a lot of the panelists have kids, and, you know, I'm sure sometimes the men get these kind of negative reactions too, but it tends to be more the women, like, aren't you selfish for leaving your kids to go run, or things like that. How do women navigate this? So some women with some experience in this is Donna and Nikki, and if they would like to take the floor.
Thanks, Izzy. I'll make a start. Hi, everybody. So as Izzy mentioned, we're going to talk about 4 different questions which have a negative tone about them and tend to be directed to women in ultra running. So the first question we're going to address is, you know, are you being selfish if you leave your husband at home with the kids? So one point I'd really like to make is that I think doing something for yourself is really not selfish. I think it allows you to bring out the best in yourself. I know that after I've been for a long run, you know, I'm a better mum, I'm a better wife. And I kind of liken it to the safety instructions that you give, you know, you're given on a plane when you get on, and they say, you know, put your own oxygen mask on first before you try and help someone else. So I think that really sort of sums up that, you know, you can bring the best out of yourself when you actually give yourself some time to begin with. The other thing that I think is an interesting point along this line is I think women going out running and ultra running make fantastic role models. I think, you know, we're showing that exercise is really important, and also that if you want to reach a goal, that you need to put the work in consistently. And maybe if I pop in a bit of a story here, my son is 9, and he doesn't run with me. He's into Pokemon and Minecraft and playing basketball. But the other day, I came in and I was in the middle of a run, and I came into the house, and he said, "Mum, how long are your loops you're doing?" And I said, "Oh, you know, they're about 8 to 10 minutes." And he said, "Oh, look, do you think I'd be able to come on one with you?" And I guess it just gave me that little hint of, you know, perhaps what we are doing is having a slow impact. And then the last point I just wanted to make in regards to this question about being selfish, I thought, look, when I'm thinking about how to respond to this question, maybe I should actually just go and ask the people around me. So I went and spoke to my husband and I said, look, what do you think about this? What are your thoughts? And after we got through the jokes of, you know, oh, it's great to get you out of the house, we got kind of down to the serious stuff. And he said to me, you know what, I think it's really important that we both develop our own passions and hobbies, not only for ourselves, but also for the longevity of our relationship. So, yeah, in summary, I think, look, it's, you know, we bring the best out of ourselves when we run or do whatever fills our cup up. I think we can be great role models. And I also think it's really important to ask the people around us what their impression is and take that on board. So, yeah, I'll now pass over to Nikki for the next question.
Okay, so the second question, which is a bit of a crazy statement, I sort of thought was, aren't you selfish for choosing to run and not have kids? Which I found quite interesting as I go. I think all the women tonight on the panel have kids. All of my friends I know who run have kids. So I did find that as a sort of a strange statement that people would choose, oh, you know, I can't have kids and run, because I really think it's a choice. We all know we can combine both. And I think, you know, people don't choose to not have kids so they can run. So, and I think, you know, at the end of the day, if women choose not to have kids, if that's what makes them happy, you know, it's not up to any of us to judge them for that. And, you know, the friends I know who run and don't have kids, it's usually a choice of, you know, they're focused on their career. You know, sometimes it's even the cost of raising kids and they want to travel. So I did sort of find it a bit of a crazy statement, or, you know, sort of question that was raised. So that's how Donna and I sort of, you know, answered it. So I don't think there's too much to add with that one.
Yeah, and the next
sorry, go on.
The next question was just around, it's a similar sort of tone, but does your partner resent the time that you spend away because you run? And sort of how might you overcome this? And I think just touching on what we said before is it's important to ask your partner how they feel. And if they're fine about it, then that's great. But if they're not, then it's probably good to actually uncover that and kind of tease it out and see what the issues are. So possible strategies you could use if there are issues of being away and spending time running. And I was having a bit of a think about this before the seminar, and I have a bit of a research hat. So I kind of delved into the literature or the studies that have been done and pulled up one that's just been published actually this year. And they surveyed over 600 ultra runners and asked them what was the biggest issue that they found with getting out to run. And their biggest issue was trying to find the time. And then they asked them what was the thing that allowed them to overcome it. And they said that it was actually being able to negotiate with their partner. And by negotiation, they meant sort of be able to get a win-win situation where both parties came away feeling good about the situation. So that was, I thought, was quite an interesting finding. The other thing that, you know, the strategies I use and I know some of my runner friends use is trying to include family in training and racing. So, you know, could your partner actually be a support crew for you at your next event, or could they come from a bike ride, or could they run with you during a loop of your training? I know we've combined events with family holidays. So in 2020, we went to New Zealand and I supported a friend of mine, Barb, who did her first 100 miler, but we went as a family and we went to the event, but we also had a fantastic holiday as well. And then just the last thing is, you know, I've noticed with ultras that there's kids events and shorter events popping up with, you know, 50 and 100K events. So it might be that family can actually do their own little event when you go and do yours. So they're just some ideas to throw around in terms of overcoming the impact on home life. And then I think Nikki's got one other point she was going to make. Can I hand over to you, Nikki?
Yeah, sure. So the last one, which I know we all would have felt at times, is managing the guilt that I know we've all felt at times for spending time on ourselves. So whether that's been away from, you know, you're away from your kids, away from your partner, husband, doing something we want to do. And I think you have to refrain it, that you shouldn't feel guilty doing something for yourself. I think it's important for all of us, male, female, to all have our own me time. And, you know, like Donna said earlier, it's managing how you have your own me time and each activity, that what's your chosen activity that's your me time. I also think, you know, it's tough because we're, you know, I work full time. I've got a son who spends hours training himself. You know, then there's housework and everything on top of it. So it's trying to find that balance, and I think not feeling guilty, because I think if you invest in yourself, you know, it's actually been known, you know, it's lower stress levels, you're more productive, you have more energy. So I know myself, once I get my run out the way, tick that box, I then know I can come back, focus on whether it's, you know, spending time with my son, or he's in year 11, I'm helping him with revision and homework, that I'm actually invested in him, and I've moved on from, you know, ticking the box of what I need to get done. So I think it is really, really important to not feel guilty and to actually see it as a positive, that you're actually investing in your own health and well-being too.
Thank you. And really good points there about the importance of spending time on ourselves. And as you rightly said, Nikki, men and women, I just think I do believe that women do feel that guilt even more so. But the cleaning will still be there, whether you run or not. So it doesn't matter. Next, we have Annabelle is going to talk to us about the different social constraints that we may experience when we're running, like joining a group. You know, we talked about there's more groups now, but sometimes there's a fear associated with it. Am I too slow to run with them? But I'm too scared to run on my own. So these different concepts that might come up when you're contemplating going for a run is Annabelle's topic.
Thanks, Izzy. Some of these social constraints, I'm hoping to give you guys a few things that have worked for me or that have worked for other female runners I know to overcome them. But this idea of being too slow to run with others really resonated with me. And it was almost one of the, you know, for me, running was a really solitary activity when I was in my 20s. And it was, you know, I was probably into my 30s before I started running with groups. And I think what initially held me back from doing that was this idea in my head, would I be able to keep up with other runners? Will I be left behind? And in fact, when I joined a group, you know, my experience of that was really different. My early experience running with others with the City Striders, which is a quite well-known, well-established group in Sydney, and they've got a huge, what I found really rapidly was they've got a huge kind of range of running speeds and stamina, and they run these groups where people are training for, say, 6-foot track, or they train for road marathons, and they when you do those training runs, they'll say to people, we want you to buddy up. It's frowned upon if someone comes back alone at the end. There's a sort of an expectation that people will try and keep up with each other and slow down for other runners and look after them. The other thing I'd note, and I tried to find some data points around this, we've just got such a wide variety of speeds with the performances people put in. And I looked at Coast to Cosy, which I guess is billed as our premier ultra run for the year. So that's, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's 240 kilometres. You run from the beach in Eden Marimbula to the highest point in Australia, the peak of Mount Kosciuszko, and back down to the car park. And when you look at the span of times, you've got people finishing at the front end in mid-20s hours, but then the race director has allowed people to be out there till, you know, well into the mid-40s. So you do get this. The sport does lend itself, I think, to this wide range of speeds. And so it's almost, instead of being a deal breaker, I almost think this thing of speed is a non-issue, even though it can be something that gets into your head. Conversely, there's the fear about running alone. And, you know, often, just given we've all got jobs and kids and all these other commitments, sometimes that's just the way it is. You do need to do that. And I think partly navigating that is about looking at just practical things you can do. So what I'll tend to do is try and if I'm running alone, I'll try and keep it safe by sort of measures you can take, such as running where you know there's lighting, running where you know there's traffic, not going anywhere that does feel like it's not safe, that it's a bit neglected. Some of the apps are quite useful in this regard these days. A lot of them will actually have literally these heat maps where they used technology where they followed runners, and they can see that a lot of people take certain, you know, maybe major arterial roads, or certain routes are quite popular. And so it's quite easy to find that information. Another thing I've always tended to do is tell people where I'm going, when to expect me back. I'll actually text that information to my family, so I know they're not listening as I tell them on the way out. I know it's gone in one ear and out the other, so I'll tend to sort of send a message. I think one of the other fears is whether you know other runners, that sort of sense of, you know, being in touch with people who can show you the ropes and so on. And I think for me, that's really evolved in the last sort of 10 or so years that I've been in ultras. We're kind of in this social media age now where, as you mentioned earlier, Izzy, there's just been this proliferation of running groups. When I started, there was a few well-established ones, but now it's not quite a fracturing, but there's just been this exponential growth, and there's now groups that are quite specialised. But we're in this sort of age of just information availability and social media and the like, and it's not hard to find people to run with, so you can do that quite easily. Just jumping on Facebook, a lot of these groups are quite easy to kind of get access to that information. Some of the other things that I think do act as constraints for people is concerns about how they look, and I don't just mean physically, but I mean the whole, as we were discussing earlier, the optics of being in this sport, and sort of this almost this tyranny of what, you know, good women, nice girls do. And I have found I don't get that when I'm on events at all. It's not been an issue, and so this idea of how I'm meant to be isn't something that social pressure. I don't feel that on these events, and on those in the sport when I'm running with other people. It's certainly not a beauty parade. You go into it knowing it can be quite ugly, and I think everyone's quite accepting of that. It just has its moments. I think that the issue, we talked a bit tonight about this issue of men being faster runners. I think that issue it spans agendas. Look, there is such a mix of speeds that I don't think you need to worry about that. And look, to be honest, some of the races that really stand out in my mind, and some of the ones where I've had the most fun and just gotten the most out of it at some deeper level, it's been the runs where it's been horrendous, and I've been barely making cutoffs, and you know, I've had to find some way of getting through. And I think, you know, you don't need to be up the front end to have a lot of fun on these things. You can have a great time in the middle of the pack. You can have a great time at the back of the pack. And you know, while we do celebrate the success of people at the front end, I think it's a remarkably inclusive sport for people across all of those levels. I can get into the whole social thing of going to the dunny, which is one of the things that you guys asked me to talk about. Would you like me to get into that now? I've got all kinds of advice for this.
No, I mean, it was just a suggestion, but you know, it is sometimes something women get nervous about, especially if you're running with a group of men. Oh my God, I need to go to the toilet. No, what?
Yeah, no, so
there's no toilets.
That's.
Oops, and I know you've muted yourself.
Sorry, I was going to say one handy thing you can do is there's actually there's a public toilet app that's produced, and it's quite staggering. There's tens of thousands of things throughout Australia, and you can download an app to find it. Service stations, if you're on the roads, there's all kinds of practical things you can do. Cafes,
and to be honest, when you're in the bush, you know, you've got privacy right there.
Yep. The bush, I think things are different. You just want to be sure where you put your feet. You don't want to twist an ankle. In an ideal world, if you're going in the bush, you might think of bringing like toilet paper, that kind of thing. Ideally not leaving stuff behind. So Ziploc bags are really good for carrying your own waste out. But I guess you throw shame out the window in some ways on these events, but there isn't a particular sense of shame around these things when you're on them. It's just one of the many, many, many wonders of these events.
And that's true. And leading on from that, a special challenge that really only women have, well, they do, is periods. And in talking about that, you know, what happens if, you know, you want to go on a group run and you've got your period and you're in the bush and there's men and women and there's no toilets? Or how do you cope with, you know, the bloating and those sorts of things? What should women think about with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try and give you some practical sort of advice. Look, this is there's an interesting area, and there's a whole heap of research that you can go and look at on the internet about. I saw some of the questions were about training new cycles, but I might just try and take it back to some really practical stuff. Sometimes it helps with. Sometimes running itself can help with PMS. It can help with cramping. Not always. I would say it's worth. Yes, the research is really useful, but I think really it comes down to trying to know your own body, keeping track of your own cycle, and how that manifests over the course of a month. And so, yes, in the week before you get your period, it tends to be a kind of a more inflammatory stage. You might be a little more injury prone. You tend to feel a bit crabbier. But, you know, that varies from person to person. And I think it's really good to kind of keep a track of that, because what that does is gives you the power to manage it and to know the ways in which it might be an issue. I'm old enough to remember when there was just a whole lot less product offerings. I did this race a couple of years ago where, you know, of course I got my period. It was a 6-day race, and I asked actually a 50-year-old man to go and buy me some tampons, and I think he was a bit shocked by this, and he came back and he was a bit horrified, and his line was, "There's just so much choice, I didn't know what to buy." But this is a good thing, actually, because the market itself for the products is probably more sophisticated than it was a couple of years ago. So we've got a lot of options now. There's this whole thing of activewear that targets women who've got their period, and so, you know, you can literally buy leggings that have a built-in, they act as a de facto sort of tampon. You can buy pants that are leak-proof, so you don't have to worry about, oh God, you know, what if that happens? I personally found sort of tampons, they work for me, but there's hygiene stuff you do need to manage, and so I think it's always wise to be prepared for the hygiene side of things. So I like little soap flakes, you know, the ones you can just buy that you take camping and so on. I'll tend to put a Ziploc bag and I put contact lenses in it because I'm completely blind, and if I lose one or one breaks, it's going to be horrendous. So that's my number one thing to put in the Ziploc bag. But I tend to carry something like a tampon with me. People use cups. There's quite a range of products, and I would say don't go to an event planning on using a product you haven't used before. I think it's best to know what you're comfortable with. If you get,
Yeah,
you mentioned
I think that covers it, doesn't it? Really? Yeah, and I think just so women know, it is something we all deal with, and Annabelle, like, you know, a 6-day event, you know. I mean,
you could set your clock by it. Guaranteed, if I do one of these events, it will happen, and
it tends to happen that women get their periods when they race, and so it needs to be something you think about and plan for. And definitely hygiene is a very important issue as well. Thank God everyone's got about 6 million bottles of hand sanitizer these days. Next, we are going to be talking with Nikki again, and Nikki's going to be talking about a subject very dear to her heart. What if we get lost when we're running? That seems to be a common theme for Nikki. Also about, do we really need all that expensive gear? Do we need all the latest gizmos and fancy bits and bobs? And how do we fit training in with a busy life? Thanks, Nikki. It looks like you're off mute, Nikki, but we can't hear you. I'm not sure what's going on there, and maybe your microphone has just died. Oh, here we go. Is that you there? No? Would any of the other panelists like to take that one? Sorry, Nikki.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there we go. What happened there?
Phones died.
Okay. All right. Would you like to talk about that just quickly?
Sure. So yeah, like I said, like when I first started, you know, many moons ago, like course markings were nowhere near what they were now. And I probably, you know, started running, and, you know, the little races I did were all marked. And then when I moved up to ultras, courses weren't marked, and it was a challenge. Whereas I find now most courses you do are pretty heavily marked. There's also, you know, you can download the courses onto your Garmin's. We've now got more high-tech Garmin's. Like when I first started, I think I just wore a normal wristwatch. I didn't even know what a Garmin was. So I think there are more things available now. You know, you can, I wouldn't have even back then known to go over and research the course and know where I was running. So I think all those little things that you become aware of, I think too, it's not as easy to get lost as it probably was when I first started running. That's probably touching on that one. And two, I think, you know, a lot of longer races, I always try to stick with someone. So if I'm in like 100, 200 mile race, I would try and run with someone and overnight have someone with me just to feel confident. And I think with two of you, it makes it easier to navigate the course. And then in saying that, you know, if you get lost, there's always an out, whether you call your partner, friend, race director, stay put. So I don't think it's anything to be super stressed about. And I'm sure many of us have gone off course or, you know, taken a wrong turn and got lost in an ultra. And we learn by it. I learned by my first one. Okay, touching on mandatory gear, another really good, you know, do I need all the whiz bang gear? And I go, you know, I think the main thing is investing in a couple of really good items. So making sure, you know, you've got a really good, whether you road, trail, whatever race you do, invest in a really good pair of shoes. And I think, you know, when you're clocking up pace, it's really worthwhile spending your money, knowing what shoes suit you and investing your money in your shoes. If you run at night, same, get a good headlamp. Like that was probably one of the best investments I made because, you know, you go out for a run with a crap headlamp, you know, the batteries would go flat, I'd be out there in the dark. So invest your money in the important things. You know, a lot of us run at 5 in the morning. So I go, I don't feel I need to be dressed in the best gear and look the best and, you know, because no one sees me. So that's not something I really feel I need to invest money in. You know, and I suppose for me, I'd rather invest my money in having a massage and little things like that. So work out what your priorities are, what's important to you. And you, do that. Your other thing to know, marketplace and all those other places, you can pick up secondhand packs that someone's used once and has decided not to run again. I think the next question was fitting in your training. So, you know, my son's 17 now. So when I first started running, he was a baby in a pusher. So I would spend hours with him in the pusher, literally 4 or 5 hours, him in the pusher running. And then, you know, when he got to primary school, I had a day off a week and I would drop him at primary school, go off for a run, come back and pick him up. He would go off to Auskick. I'd, you know, work my training around his, you know, Auskick training. And, you know, like I think depending on the different age groups, you know, there's, you know, if they're in creche, if they're at school, you know, I sort of found as my son got older, it obviously gets easier. You know, he'd go off to footy training for 2 hours and I would run laps around the footy oval. And I know coach and the footy team thought I was mad, but I go, you know what, if that was the only way to get my 2 hours in, I would do it. So I think you have to be smart. You know, I always carried a pair of shoes and a change of clothes in my car. And if I could, you know, even grab half an hour at lunchtime, you know, I would just try and fit it in where I could. So I wasn't always impacting, you know, my family time as well. So I think if you sort of plan your day, you know, it's not as hard as it sort of seems like it is. Yeah.
Well said. Yep, that's right. And that's it. You just have to be a little bit creative with your time, but there's, you know, if you really want to find the time, you will find it. And well done. Thank you, Nikki. Okay, our last topic for tonight is that it's never too late to start running. And certainly someone who can definitely say that is Jane. As we said earlier, I mean, she just did her last Coast to Cosy her 9th one when she was 60. So, which is an inspiration to all of us. So, Jane, what do you have to say on this topic?
Thanks, Iz. Yeah, I'll be 60 hopefully when I finish my next one because the Coast to Cosy is a week before last year.
Okay, so sorry.
60, thank goodness. Yeah, family to me was really important in my 20s and 30s, and I don't think I'd have been married for 36 years if I was doing what I was doing now when I was younger. You know, my kids meant the world to me, and it was more important to have a stable family. And I really encourage anyone that thinks that they can't fit it all in to just take a step back and look at the big picture and say, where are you going to be in 40 years' time? You know, there are people in their 20s trying to do everything. Sometimes you've got to give. You've just got to let something go and let equilibrium be happy in a family. And that's what I did. And we moved to Japan. And when I was 40, I didn't have any friends that ran. And one friend in Japan said, I want to run London Marathon. I'd never run anywhere. I didn't run to the shops. I was a gymnast when I was younger. And all of a sudden I started running when I was, 39 to run a marathon in London when I was 40. And I didn't know any runners, absolutely none. And I think you've got to, when you get to the age I was, you have to be very careful that you're doing it for the right reasons. And to me, it was more about finding, when we came back to Australia, finding a new group of friends that all had the same church as me on Sunday, which was going for a run. And it's non-ageist. I had a great mate called Ray James that decided that I should be running 100 miles down at GNW when we were on our way to Fitzroy Falls Marathon. And 2 days later, I ticked this 100-mile box. I didn't even know how long 100 miles was. But I had this mentor. He's now, I don't know, probably 74. And he had absolute faith in me. And I think the older you get, you need to build other people up and you need to have other people building you up. And, for all those oldies out there, don't be shy, get out of your comfort zone. I'm now instilling good values in my kids and my grandkids. All my kids have run 42 marathon. One of my daughters has done Oxfam with me. My grandkids know I run. I was a fat kid. There's always time to just make your life a little bit more balanced than it was, and give time to yourself. And I don't think I could have given the time that I'm doing right now to me when I was 25, 35. And all these people saying they can't find people to run with, join Aura. You'll find great runs, but more importantly, you'll find great friends. And if you need to have people to run with, we'll find them for you. Like we'll send you in the right direction to find a running group. There's so much out there that you can do. You just need to have the right channels to do it.
Thanks, Jane. You're quite right. And the beauty of ultra running is it actually predisposes itself well to older runners too. So that's the beauty of it. And we actually do have one more topic. I nearly missed it. Can a coach help? Many runners are always unsure whether they should have a coach. And Amy is here to tell us about whether or not you should maybe get a coach.
Thanks, Lizzie. Yeah, I think you certainly don't have to have a coach. But I think what's really important, particularly for beginners, is developing a knowledge of how to train for an ultra distance event, if that's where you want to go. Ultra distance running, it really is quite a strain on the body. Running long distance, particularly if you're new to running. And I think that gaining the knowledge of a coach, not just knowledge, but the experience of a coach, and a good coach can really help you to go through that motion of training and to figure out what works best for you whilst also keeping you healthy and injury free. And that's really important. A lot of the times as a coach, I see runners who just come into the sport and they might get on Google or whatever, and they'll Google, how do I train for a 100k race, and they'll pull up somebody's training plan, somebody, Killian Hornet or somebody has done 200k a week, and go, well, that's what I need to do to train for a ultra distance event. And certainly that might work for him, but when you're first starting off, having the knowledge of how to build up your kilometers and how to keep yourself healthy and injury free while doing it is really important, because that can sort of determine whether or not you start the race or not, whether your training's gone to plan. So just a coach can really help you to develop that knowledge and give you their experience and their knowledge. And I think for me, personally, something that a coach has in the past been really helpful to do is to take away a stress and give me back some time. I know for a lot of women, finding the time to think about yourself is stressful. It's time consuming. You spend a lot of time thinking about other people. You put yourself on the back burner. And when you get up to go for your run in the morning, you suddenly realize, oh, I didn't really think about what I needed to be doing for this run. So you just go off on a mindless run, and that can kind of escalate. You can end up doing that for weeks at a time and realize, actually, this has been really unproductive because I haven't put the time into myself, into thinking about what I need to be doing because I'm too busy. So you can kind of unload that onto a coach, and a coach can think about you. You don't have to think about you. You just get up in the morning and, you know, check your email or your messages or whatever printout your coach has given you to put on the fridge and go, well, this is what I'm doing today. Now I have a structure. Now I have a plan. I'm off, and you get it done. You haven't had to think about it. It's not stressful. So a coach, particularly for that reason, personally for me, I think is quite beneficial. But yeah, of course, in saying that, you don't have to have a coach if you've got time to spend, you know, doing your research, and, you know, maybe you could email some runners. You could email the guys on the panel here tonight and say, hey, I'm just starting, you know, any tips, any hints. So it certainly doesn't have to be an expensive exercise to get someone to help you start off your training, but it can certainly be beneficial to find a good coach who can help you head off on the right foot, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you, Amy. That's some really good points there about the benefits of a coach. And I think the main one for me that you said was not having to think about it and plan it and organize it, because all that organizing is quite tiring when you're doing everyone else's organizing. So thanks for that. Now we are going to go into question time. So thank you to all the panelists. Simone has got lots of great questions. I know she's been busily answering them as fast as her fingers can type, but she couldn't quite get to all of them. And I think some of the questions maybe need a little bit more input from some of our panelists. So Simone, what have you got for us?
Thanks, Susie. I think just from listening to Amy then, I think there's a lot of the questions that have been coming through are on how do I train for my first ultra, or if I've been doing a half marathon, how do I step up to a 50 or 100K or 100 miles? So that's been one of the biggest questions, and I think all of us here can answer that. Just touching back on Amy, because it was just having that guidance from a coach and being able to take it step by step. My answer to someone in that chat was, there's no real hard and fast rule. I can't say to everybody here, if you've done a half marathon in 6 months' time, you can run 100Ks. Because it just doesn't work that way. There's no cookie cutter approach to training, and that's where a coach can really help you and guide you and get you there safely. You might say, okay, you've got to look at what your training age is, how long you've been running for in the first place. And if you've only been running for 6 months and you want to go and do a mile next year, you're probably looking down the path of getting injured and doing too much too soon. I think, just take it in steps slowly and be guided correctly, and then you'll have a long running career, and that's what you want. You don't need to do it all in one hit. As Jane said, you can still be doing it at 60, so you can go from a half marathon, aim for a 50K next year if you've comfortably done 1 or 2 half marathons. Once you've done that, see how that feels, maybe go back and do it again, try and do it a little bit better, a little bit faster time, tweak a few things. If you found the stairs where you broke down, next time do more stair training. You've just got to find that specificity for the particular race you're doing. Jumping to 100 mile, it is a big jump, and like Amy said, it's very tough on your body. It does, it's very demanding, and if you have a stressful life already and you've got a stressful family work-life balance, running is a stress on your body, and it's another added stress, and that's what you have to consider as well. That how much can you physically take on board and still maintain that balance and healthy balance in your life? So. To answer that question, I don't think we can give you an answer to that question. I think it's
the
more
answer to the question is
yeah, I think it's a very individual thing. I think everybody, you're all capable of doing it in your own time frame, but there's no correct time frame to go by. That would be my answer to that.
Another question perhaps that we can.
Yeah, how do you see the time frames? I think strength training was one that's come up a couple of times. So how important is strength training?
So would any of the panelists, particularly Jane, would you like to talk about strength training?
Yeah, with Coast to Cosy a few years ago, I had a really bad back, and I've joined a gym with my daughter. And I think it's really important that if you're going to do longer distance, Coast to Cosy is pretty extreme, but to carry yourself for 240 something Ks at the age I am, I think strength training is definitely something that people should be looking at. It's not all about time on feet and kilometres done in a week. It's about making sure that your body's in balance. And I think the older you get, the more important strength training is.
That's a really good point. And especially the longer the distance gets, you're right, you need the strength to be able to maintain your running. Simone, another question.
Yes, recovery was a really good question. I thought it came up. People are interested in how do you recover? You go through all this training. Do we recommend massage, ice baths, rolling, stretching, yoga, that sort of stuff?
It could be a full-time job recovering.
That's just running and recovery is, you haven't got time for anything else.
Who would like to talk about recovery? You got someone?
I can help if no one wants to stick their hand up while I'm on mute. Yeah, recovery I think is very, very important. Obviously, especially the more your mileage builds up each week. Not only just in form of rolling and massage. I personally get, especially if I'm leading up to a big event, I'll have a massage every week. It's a bit indulgent, I know, and I do feel like I'm really high maintenance, and that's what my family call me. But I think I'm putting all that time into training and the effort and making sure I'm asleep and I can sleep and I eat all the right things and I'm on my feet doing all the training. And I think if you don't balance it and look after yourself, it just goes down the tube a bit. So I am a foam roller advocate, although it does tend to collect a bit of dust occasionally and I have to remind myself to get on it. It's just one of those things. And I do get a bit slack because I massage once a week and I think, they're going to do it all. But yeah, as I get older, I definitely need to pay more attention to it. Ice bars, I think, are great if you can just stand in a pool. I love to just get in the ocean if I've been somewhere it's miserable. But really worthwhile, I think, if you can have a long run and then finish off in a bit of cold water, that helps.
I mean, there is debate whether ice baths. So just research that one because it suits some people, but sometimes contrast therapy is better. Hot, cold.
You can do both. Yeah,
gets the blood flowing.
Yeah, I find it just it has a good therapeutic feel getting out of it. I do. If you've got those really achy legs after a super long run, you know what it feels like. Just standing and you can walk out and go, oh my God, I do feel better from your hips down. But like I said, it can just have a therapeutic effect more than anything, rather than actually doing too much. But I think anything that takes away the pain is good.
And you did mention, you sort of spoke about you sleep, and to my mind, certainly one of the
biggest
best
recovery
is sleep.
Biggest recovery you can get, absolutely. And if it means that you're waking up dog tired every day and dragging yourself into the run, sometimes skipping a day and sleeping in and having a rest day is going to be your best recovery. And that's again where a coach can come in, because I think a lot of us can get so driven in what we're doing, and it becomes, you just can't miss that run. You can't, if I don't get out of bed and do it, you do yourself more damage. You don't listen to your body, and that's another reason. If you've got a good coach, talk to your coach, explain that you're feeling dog tired and you just can't, your sleep patterns are all out. Look for signs that your body needs more recovery.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Simone, another question.
Another question. I'm training around your menstrual cycle. Sorry, I was reading. I didn't really listen to what you were saying because I was too busy typing. But, is there, any tips for women that I don't actually have one, so I can't help you? But
for training around your
cycle, just training and racing around your menstrual cycle. Do people manipulate their periods?
I personally don't, because you find races don't necessarily accommodate your cycle. So I personally don't. But does anyone else on the panel train with in regards to their cycle? No, we all just train.
Just train around the clock. Yep, pretty much. Yeah, and that's what I used to do.
And it's such an interesting thing because we all react differently to different parts of our cycle. So where one person may feel good, someone else may feel crappy. So I think you've got to kind of do it based on how you personally feel.
Back to that individuality that we've all got. Everyone has different recovery times, different reactions through their cycles. And another question that came up was menopause. So how do you find going through perimenopause or postmenopause? Is there anyone feeling that that's a bigger issue?
That's something I know anything personally about.
Can't speak from experience yet.
No, neither me.
Anyone can offer that yet? Come back in 10 years and ask that question again. We might not be able to help you.
Yes.
I think you can make excuses for anything, and I think, you know, just deal with it. It's, you know, you have an injury, you have this, you have that. You know,
there's always something.
Yeah, there's always something. So just, you know, soldier on, mate. Soldier on.
Yeah, because you can't. You're going to have to deal with it either way.
It's eventually something like that's going to come up, and if you want to continue your running career and continue running for a long time, you do have to find ways to get around those things.
It's either that or the rocking chair.
That's
you're 100% right, Jane. You're 100% right. Yeah. You can give in or you can fight on.
Move on.
Okay.
Simone, maybe
just
one more question.
Yep. I've said menopause. Pelvic floor weakness was one that came up.
Yeah, I can say something to that. So I've got a background in physio, and so pelvic floor very much comes up in physiotherapist training. It's certainly a very common problem, so it's great that it's been brought up. It's certainly on runs that I've been on. There's certainly been women that have commented on issues regarding pelvic floor. So, you know, I think it's certainly something that can be addressed. It can be due to weak pelvic floor muscles, and those muscles can certainly be trained up. So my next step would be, or my suggestion would be, is to speak to your GP or potentially see a physio, and a physio that's trained in women's health. They'll certainly be able to assess your situation and recommend things from there.
Great, thanks for that. Yeah. So basically, just like any muscle, you need to strengthen it. Thank you. So that's it for the questions. If people still have more questions, please feel free to email your state rep, which is on the Aura website, and they will try to find someone, either they'll answer it themselves or find someone appropriate to answer for you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We hope these topics have been really helpful and you've enjoyed it and had as much fun as we have. Ewan's just going to come back on just with some closing words to let you know what else is happening.
Thanks, Izzy. Yeah, it's been great to hear such wisdom and personal stories. You know, used to having this on our social runs, and you know, we're all missing those. So, you know, it's great to have everyone sharing these stories. You know, Jane with the honest truth. It's always good to get you out of a tough spot. So yeah, thanks very much for our panelists and organisers. Thanks, Simone, Izzy, Nicole, Annabelle, Amy, Jane, Alicia, John, Nikki, Donna, and Martin. Easy that everyone's name is on the screen there. So, you know, I know how much work goes into putting these things on, you know, all the research and, you know, those nights getting this together. You know, everyone's an Aura member, and they've all volunteered their time. I think this is a series. This is our first of many. So definitely look out for future topics. Be looking at like nutrition, Red S, for the webinars for women. There'll also be some member webinars, so gear, training, building up for longer races. So don't forget to sign up to be an Aura member. It's at a low price of $49. You get all these member benefits, monthly Ultra Mag, which is coming out tomorrow, race entry discounts, Aura points comp, webinars like this, and much more, like a community of people, you know, as Jane said, that, you know, kind of help you through your Ultra journey. So thanks. This recording will be shared after, so in case you want to go back or share it with other people. So thanks for all coming, and see you at the next one.
Thanks, Ewan. We appreciate that. And yes, thank you, everyone. And look out on the Aura website for more webinars, and of course on all social media. We're all getting into that and making sure we're promoting it. And yes, join Aura. We're all members of Aura and we love it, and it's a great community, and we'd love to have you on board. Okay, so Simone, I think that's it for the evening.
Thank you very much. We hope to see you at our next one. We'll be posting some information on that one soon. Bye.
And we'll be posting this recording soon.
Good night.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.